What's going on, Luminators? You juggernauts, you're powerful and unstoppable. Boston C here, abovethesun.io, abovethesun.io. Go there, check us out, learn a little bit more about P48, QRST. It'll change your life. Go there and go treasure hunting. Nonetheless, May the 3rd, 2023. Just got back from the future, above the sun, hanging out below the sun. For the love of life, what's going on down here? It's okay. We're taking care of business. We're changing the atmosphere. Imagination, desire, intention. Having a moral reverence for something bigger than humanity. How about that? That means some folks wet pants, but all right. Nevertheless, what do you want to do today? Oh, the Above the Sun team, one of the teammates is Pied Piper. He goes by Segullah. Go to Segullah Studios. Brother Jeff, he's a good man. Sent me an article I think I'm going to read. And then I'll cut out. Maybe we'll do this a little later tomorrow, something like that. So hope everybody's doing well. Thanks for hanging. It's kind of a long article. So, I don't know, mate, this might be 10, 15 minutes. I'll try to go through it as fast as I can. Keep my color commentary down to a minimum. Yeah, probably not. Anyhow, do it in 2 parts. All right, there you go. So let me do a screen share. All right, here we go. Boston C. I'll move this jabron over here. Hey, wait a minute, that's me. All right, so here we go. Let's just dig in. And you don't have to memorize or know 100% of this. Just get just grasp the message. 23 U.S. states moved to reclaim gold and silver as legal tender. We went off the gold standard in 1971. Nobody told me the impact of that, so I had to figure that out later in life, but it's all good. When we know better, we do better, right? There you go. So this was last week, April 7th of 2023, last Friday. And let's dig in. As the international reserve currency for the better part of a century, global trust in the U.S. dollar has been virtually limitless. At any time in nearly any country, its role as the ultimate safe haven currency and the universally accepted standard of economic value has been beyond question. How the dollar became the one to rule them all. Maybe you all know how that came to be, but Boston C didn't. I got a better understanding now, so let's find out more. At the turn of the 20th century, when the dollar was coming into its own, it was blessed by limited currency competition. The sterling of the British Empire had run its course, and during the Great War, Europe's leading powers raised each other's economic assets to the ground. The U.S., on the other hand, had plenty going for it. It assumed the role, hello here, Boston CZ. It assumed the role of the global export hub with a state-of-the-art manufacturing infrastructure. The mass inflows of physical gold it received bestowed global reverence upon the Federal Reserve. The newly federalized Internal Revenue Service, IRS, enjoyed access to a deep well of taxpayers maintaining robust dollar demand, and the unmatched depth of its bond markets catapulted the greenback to new heights. In more recent decades, a much darker element has also come to the forefront. David Graeber, anthropologist and noted author, wrote in his Debt, the First 5,000 Years, I quote, U.S. military predominance. No other government has ever had anything remotely like this sort of capability. In fact, a case could well be made that it is this very power that holds the entire world monetary system organized around the dollar together. Yeah. Global shifts. Despite the dollar's many strengths, no fiat currency has ever truly stood the test of time. Without exception, reserve fiat currencies have come, conquered, and then been displaced. Inevitably, political convenience trumps economic stewardship, resulting in the decline of reserve currency status. Okay. Most commonly, excessive issuance leads to accelerated devaluation and inflates away economic value. Disciplinary mechanisms that maintain the dollar's strength were disregarded when it was divorced from silver and gold in 1964 and 1971, respectively. Yet for over 50 years, a completely free-floating greenback has held sway over global markets. However, this may now be changing. Yeah. In the decades since the GFC, or the Great Financial Crisis, interest rates hit rock bottom and money printing reached eye-watering levels. This situation was exacerbated during the global pandemic. Economic activity ground to a halt, while the seemingly unlimited monetary stimulus was coupled with targeted fiscal policies and payroll protections, which fueled 4-decade highs in inflation. To make matters worse, the weaponization of the dollar through SWIFT and the imposition of reams of sanctions forced several of its biggest consumers to desperately search for alternative avenues of exchange. At the global level, de-dollarization has certainly gathered significant momentum. Do you think? The countries spearheading these efforts represent a growing share of global GDP, hold sizable commodity reserves, are united in their desire to sidestep the dollar and shield themselves from Fed policy shocks. China-Brazil trade has switched away from the dollar. Saudi Arabia offered to trade oil and alternative currencies, and accelerated central bank purchases of bullion are paving the way for a less significant role for the greenback. This is what Boston would say is a signpost. No fear anywhere, and especially not here. Plan accordingly. What's your plan? Live above the sun. Trust your outcome. It's all good, not for everyone. Moreover, the BRICS, which is Brazil, Russia, Iran, China, South Africa, and 14 other nations going to come on board, if not more. Moreover, the BRICS summit in August is expected to birth a non-dollar, non-SWIFT payment mechanism that, if successful, could play a key role in the monetary landscape of the 21st century. Each of these countries is concerned by the prospect of sanctions, either on themselves or on key partners, raging inflation and the deep erosion in U.S. bonds. The significance of precious metals. Gold and silver, and of course you can feel the bias, but everybody's got a bias. But at the end of the day, it's which bias is the best bias to be biased about. And we'll leave it at that. And if you get triggered, then you need to deal with your triggers. Gold and silver have themselves been money for thousands of years and are the most durable forms of money. They also do not suffer from counterparty risk like your bank, your stockbroker, your 401k that you can't get access to. Stuff like that. You just need to think about it. But again, no fear, especially here above the sun. They also do not suffer from counterparty risk, ensuring their value is relatively immune to the risk of the global financial markets. In a bid to relieve themselves from dollar dependence, central banks have continued to buy physical gold or repatriate the yellow metal from foreign vaults at a record pace. Mike Maloney, precious metals investor and noted author, stated in his excellent series, Hidden Secrets of Money, and I quote, "It is the ultimate money because there is nothing else even in the same league. It's divisible, it's permanent, it's a store of value, it's a unit of account, it's got everything you want out of money, but it doesn't go away and can't be increased. That is what makes gold the most beautiful money of all. What more can you ask out of money?" Yeah. Of course, I don't talk about Bitcoin, but when this is not a crypto conversation, if you haven't figured out, this is silver and gold, which we all believe in above the sun. By being a hedge against inflation, precious metals protect against excesses such as unbridled spending by state authorities and outsized deficits. The trouble at home: while the dollar's clout appears to be declining overseas, several bills have also been introduced in nearly half of U.S. states to guard against the potential implosion of the greenback. Potential, high probability. In a conversation with physical precious metals investor Ronald Brandstetter on his YouTube channels, Ron's Basement, Pat Holland of the Missouri Freedom Initiative, a grassroots organization, noted that state governments have three key concerns in this regard. First, inflation continues to ravage household budgets and threatens access to essentials such as fuel and food. So when we're seeing stuff go up, most of us haven't got our brains rewired that the dollar, your money, is becoming worth less and less and less, right? The dollar's lost 98% of its value since 1913. Yeah. So just good to know, right? So you can make choices and decisions. How you're going to navigate what's been on its way for a while. Secondly, in July this year, the U.S. government is expected to roll out its central bank digital currency, CBDC, that would potentially have some possibilities if it was backed by, say, silver or gold or Bitcoin, commodities, which is what the BRICS nations are doing. But at this point, it's unclear what the United States current government is going to do, other than roll out their payment system in July. That's what this is talking about, right? Given the programmable nature of this instrument, Robert E. Wright, a senior research fellow at the American Institute for Economic Research, warns against excessive centralization of control over purchasing decisions of ordinary citizens. Wright adds that CBDCs may not qualify as money under the Constitution. I wonder if they'll have that conversation. You know, all the politicians, not statesmen. There is a difference. Yeah. Thirdly, with bonds bleeding over the past 2 years, an increasing number of states have found their pension funds in dire straits. Yep, got a neighbor, retired, 52, retired, did his time, corrections officer up in New York, and a little concerned about his New York pension. Starting to talk about it, which you need to at least start talking about it. Although bond yields have been declining post the Silicon Valley Bank crisis, at the time of writing, 10-year yields are up by 64.81 basis points, which 100 basis points are 1%, so a little less than 1% in the last 12 months, and approximately 2.7% higher since April of 2020. Whoop, hello there, Boston. See, we're getting down towards the bottom of my deck here. In this environment, states are being forced to liquidate even larger amounts of their holdings to cover obligations, while liabilities continue to mount at an alarming rate. As a result, Pension funds are seeing material losses in capital, a decline in income on the sale of bonds, increased credit risk, and higher chances of regulatory intervention. In 2022, according to Equitable, an organization dedicated to retirement security, only 7 states and Washington, D.C. had a funding ratio of 1.0 over for their public pension schemes. To boot, the sudden fragility of the banks and the risk of systemic escalation is driving greater urgency among the states to hedge their exposure to the dollar. More concerningly, with dollar demand slowing globally, and if the BRICS plus whoever else are successful in their endeavor, the excess currency that has been circulating overseas is likely to make its way back to the USA. Interested readers can access articles at the highlighted links discussing the views of well-known analysts such as Peter Schiff and Andy Schectman. Andy Schectman's a good dude, owns Miles Franklin out in Minnesota, precious metals dealer. Peter Schiff knows the stuff on gold. He's not a fan of crypto, so I'll take half of what he says. But anyhow, that's just Boston C. They expect the influx of such a volume of currency could spark a resurgence in inflation. So what are states doing to protect themselves? With the alarming rise and the risk of dollar-denominated debt and the potential return of much higher inflation, individual states are now taking steps to shield themselves against the future featuring a dwindling dollar. The truth is that fiat currencies depend on the credibility of the issuer, and their robustness is a function of place and time. Once this credibility inevitably begins to decline, the currency loses its luster. How's your intuition doing, tribe? Everybody good? Again, no fear anywhere, but you got to be vibrating, right? Because you're relating to the truth that's coming out of all this. Well, the Lord will give you a plan on how to stay on the path of life. So, yeah, stay and rest. Unlike fiat currencies, the value of gold and silver has never been extinguished. And in times of turmoil, such as during currency transitions, they tend to preserve their value far more effectively than other financial instruments. Today, grassroots organizations and sitting politicians, yeah, they sit on their schmuggenhug, drawing upon constitutional expert Professor William Green's 2010 boilerplate draft of the Constitutional Tender Act to launch a movement to reclaim the right to recognize physical gold and silver as legal tender. Absolutely. No brainer. Choices equal outcomes, right? Good choices, positive outcomes, not so good choices. Well, you know, corruption, chaos, toxicity. Yeah. It's just how the technology works. Writing for the Sound Money Defense League, Stephen Gleason, president of Money Metals Exchange, bucketed state legislative efforts in 3 key categories. The first step towards mainstreaming recognition as legal tender is to eliminate sales tax from precious metals, which is now the case in 42 states. Okay, that's cool. This is crucial because it eliminates needless transaction costs and unnecessary frictions, which can hamper freedom of exchange. Moreover, sales or capital gains tax implies that gold or silver is a commodity and not money. Secondly, states are looking to establish depositories or precious metals reserves to act as a hedge against runaway inflation and to boost pension funds. Thirdly, newly introduced bills are arguing for the removal of income tax on the sale of gold or silver. The legitimacy of such efforts would flow from Section 10 of the U.S. Constitution, which notes, no state shall enter into any treaty, alliance, or confederation, grant letters of marque and reprisal, coin money, emit bills of credit, make anything but gold and silver coin a tender in payment of debts, pass any bill of a tender, ex post facto law or law impairing the obligation of contracts, or grant any title of nobility. Almost done, folks. Put me on pause, get some lunch, and come back because I'm not stopping. This may sound like a radical idea, but as mentioned earlier, dollars were backed by silver and gold till not very long ago, and states are focusing on simply reinstating this recognition. In a widespread movement, local grassroots organizations and state lawmakers have introduced bills to initiate this process in at least 23 states, with legislators of at least 10 states introducing their version of the bill in 2023 alone, including Montana, Missouri, Kansas, Oregon, Kentucky, and Wisconsin. So with that, I think I'll stop. Silver and gold, folks. We need to get back to a silver and gold foundation. Bitcoin's got to play a part, and we'll see how corruption gets unraveled and dismantled to allow what needs to be allowed. And so with that said, let me start the share. Tell you how much I appreciate you guys. Love you all soon. And until next time, stay in the way, stay in the path. Boston Sea, up and away.